Mrs. Higgins, and today we're going to be doing an art lesson around line drawings. So a couple things I want you to keep in mind. One, I always like to have music playing as I'm doing art. It helps the creativity to flow. So you'll hear it in the background. I have some classical music playing. Secondly, I want everyone to relax and breathe. This is a fun exercise for adults and children, and you need to just be loose when you're drawing. And thirdly, we're going to be working with line, and we're using pen, and so you have to commit to your line, and you just have to let it rip, and you can't overthink it. There's no erasing. You do your line, and you just let it rest. You let it be there, because there are no mistakes in art. So the first piece that we're going to do is of our hand. And so what you want to do is you want to position your hand, so your hand is your model, so to speak, and then you're going to draw it. And you're going to pick a starting point, and your eye is going to trace along your hand, and your other hand is going to be drawing exactly what your eye sees. And at some point, if you're concentrating very much on this, you don't have to think about it very much. Your hand will just start to do what your eye is seeing. So I think of it as you're like a little snail going along and very slowly replicating what you see. So I'm going to start at the bottom, or actually I'm going to start at the top part of my hand and draw what I see. It's going to be at a little bit of an angle to you until I'm done. Kind of looks like a little pincer the way I've done it, and I'm going to go back in and add some details that I'm seeing. Of course, my fingernail, the side of my fingernail. And these are like the segmentations in my fingers as my hands are bent. And if I was going to take, and this is like the first knuckle and the second knuckle, and if I was doing this very slowly or redoing it, probably ideally my hand would have come down a little bit more here. But this is my warm-up, and of course I'm not erasing, so we're going to let that go. And I can do any sort of pose and redo this as many times as I'd like. So the second one that I encourage you to do is take any shoe and have that be your model and place it on the table. Of course, I have a paper towel under to be more hygienic. And it's going to pose for you. And you're going to start the same way. You're going to pick a starting point, and your eye is going to be like a little snail moving along the edge of what you see, and then you're going to be drawing it. So I'm going to draw mine more at an angle just because that's how I'm facing. So this is my shoe, and I'm going to start at the bottom of the toe. And right now I'm drawing the heel. I'm going to come up. There's a little lip there. There's a little lip at the top of the shoe. And so that's the basic outline of the shoe. Now I'm going to come back and I'm going to add the sole that runs along the bottom of the shoe. And this sole actually has a lot of detail. There's some marks here, and it's got little tiny marks all on here. And in line drawing, besides getting the basic outline of the shape, that's interesting to look at. But it's also interesting to see the details, because that's something we don't always notice. And this also keys really well to science, because scientists are observers, and a lot of times do scientific drawings and renderings to capture what it is they see. I see some stitching here on the edge of the shoe, and there's some laces coming through up here, and they're traveling across the shoe. So that is my basic shoe, and what I've replicated is this from a side view. And this works great with any kind of shoe, a high-heeled shoe, a tennis shoe, or a flip-flop. So the last type of line drawing I want to encourage you to do is even the most fun, because you pick a partner and you sit across from them with your paper and your pen, and they sit across from you, and you look at each other and you try and draw them. So I like to start with the shape of the face. So he's off camera, but I'm going to draw my husband, Mr. Higgins. And so I'm going to look at him, and I'm going to go along his hairline. So men, you know, their hair is set back at their temple where mine is, you know, more my face. So I'm going to draw his hairline so I get the shape of his face down. As I come along, I see his ear right there, and it's attached, so I'm going to get that in. And he has a bit of a square jaw. And come back up. I see his other ear. And then this is kind of the edge of his hairline. So that's the basic shape. And then I want to think in terms of where I'm going to place the eyes, nose, mouth. And so you might want to put just a little tiny tick mark to remind you where you want to do your placement. I like to start with the nose, and I do just the bottom of the nose. And so I trace the edge of what the shape of the bottom of his nose looks like. Then I like to get in there with the eyes. And his eyes are kind of rectangular in shape more than an almond shape. And then I'm going to go down here to his mouth and put that little bow to the top of the mouth. He starts smiling when I'm doing this, so I'm going to indicate that. And now I want to get the eyeballs in, because then it doesn't really look like a person until you have that. And he has eyelids. The eyebrows are very expressive because you can kind of get an arch or an expression going that's very much defined through eyebrows. And because he's got pretty thick eyebrows. I wish I had thick eyebrows. He looks, that's like consternation. I'm not sure why. Maybe this isn't the best picture he's ever seen of himself. But I'm going to go back in and get some detail around his ear. And then I'm going to get the overall shape of his hair. Now he has curly hair, so his hair shape isn't going to be smooth. And so that's how I can indicate. And it's getting a little long, you know, because we all need a haircut these days. So that's my basic drawing. I could add a few more details, you know, smile lines, and the chin and so forth. So that's my rather stern looking husband. He's not stern at all, but that's my rendering. So you can have a lot of fun with this, because whether it's super spot on, like you're really having a successful time with it, or it gets a little goofy in some ways, it's very entertaining to not show your partner to the end and then show them. So I really love line drawing because it's so simple. All you need is a piece of paper and a pen, and you can do it over and over again. And you'll find the most ordinary objects are extraordinary when done as a line drawing. So good luck and have fun.